All right, I've got 3 o'clock. If everybody's ready, we'll go ahead and get started. It's February 27th, 3 o'clock, and this is the monthly meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District. This time I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask the board clerk to call roll.
Barnes. Here. Bauer. Here. Chaplin. Here. Cho. Farron. Hannon. Here. Dial.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. First item is the approval of our agenda and addendum. Margaret.
I move that we approve the agenda and the addendum as distributed immediately before this meeting. The addendum added action item B, onboard data communication pilot program, to the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Audience participation today. Seeing none, we move on to approval of the board minutes from our open session on January 30, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the open session board meeting minutes from January 30th, 2019. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. The second part of our minutes approval is for the closed session minutes from January 30th, 2019, which have been distributed to the board and reviewed. Ask for a motion on those.
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the closed session minutes from January 30th, 2019. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Communications.
I have two items of communications. One is from a member of the public, and then the other is from the Urbana School District. Both of these are relative to the polar vortex, the extreme cold weather day that we had on January 30th. The first one from the member of the public wrote us a very nice postcard saying, "Thank you to all that kept MTD running in this Arctic blast." And Arctic blast was underlined, thus proving that this bus company is a great asset to this company. So appreciate that. And then the other is from the school district, from the interim superintendent, Preston Williams. He says, "I would like to thank you for supporting us during our time of need. Service on, this one is not due to the cold weather. This was due to the shutdown that the high school had on February 4th. So let me start over. I would like to thank you for supporting us during our time of need service on Monday, February 4th, 2019. Your continued support of our students, staff, and community is very much appreciated. I value the continued collaboration between MTD and Urbana School District 116. We're working toward contributing to the community by having great schools and a great community. Once again, thank you for your support." So appreciate both of those. We also value our partnership with the school district, and we were happy to help them out in a time of need.
Thank you, Carl. Any communications from the board? Any board members have anything this time? All right. Our next item will move right into the managing director's report.
All right. This report is relative to January 2019. Ridership was down 0.03% this January from January of 2018, and that translates into 310 rides. So that almost is statistically irrelevant, but 310 rides nonetheless. The operating revenue was 3.8% above January of last year, and the operating expenses were 2.5% below January of last year. The year-to-date operating revenues are $278,000 above budget, and the operating expenses are $2.3 million under budget. I want to point out that the project for MCOR construction is scheduled to begin next Monday, March 4th, and therefore we are planning for reroutes to occur. And these are the significant, dramatic reroutes that I have been trying to prime you for the last year. And so the time is upon us, and these are indeed significant, and I've included some of what the planning department has preliminarily put together. So hopefully you've had a chance to look at those. They follow my report, and Jay Rank, our lead planner, is here to answer any questions that you may have regarding those reroutes or the construction or the schedule or any topic that you might have questions of Jay about.
I just wonder how you're informing passengers and students about these reroutes, that their bus stop might not have a bus coming by.
Yeah, so the planning department and operations and our marketing team are currently in the process of putting together a communications plan. And so we will be very, very aggressive about getting that word out and constantly communicating that to as many people as we possibly can throughout the entirety of the time period that we will be under reroutes for that. Jay, do you have anything you want to add to that? Or is Autumn here? Autumn is here also, our marketing manager, so if either of you want to add anything?
Yeah, point of clarification. We put March 4th as the reroute date. That was from the initial plans. They came back and said that it's probably not going to start till spring break, which is the middle of March. So that's for clarification. There's an MCOR meeting today, an open house from 4 to 6 at Newman Center that we'll be going to as well. So we will certainly get the word out and put the reroutes out when appropriate, but you want to add in on communication?
Yes, I've been working with Jay to get a better idea of the reroutes that we're expecting. And once we have that, we're also pulling together some graphics so that
Autumn, do you have your microphone on?
I thought it apparently it,
Or maybe just put
Okay,
it,
it did
put
not
it in
stand.
front.
okay. We've been working to pull together some graphics to communicate with the public what the reroutes are going to look like. I was waiting for the open house this evening so that we could get feedback from the public, and then we could coordinate a more effective communications with them. It would be nice if we could also have a few information sessions with them as to what the reroutes are going to look like and how that will impact them.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. The final part of my report then is just to report on the yards in downtown Champaign. Now that the government is back up and running again in Washington, D.C., we do know from the funding bills that were passed what the schedule will be for the Build Grant program. And that is that the NOFO, or the Notice of Funding Opportunity, should be published in April. The applications are expected to be due in July, and then the awards must be released by the Department of Transportation no later than November 15th. So that's the rough schedule for the Build program. We do not know what the schedule will be for the Bus and Bus Facility Grant Program. However, if last year is an indicator, then we can expect it to be fairly similar to the Build application process or schedule, except it's a little compressed. So the applications may be due a little after the Build applications, but the awards might come out a little before the Build awards are made. So that's what our loose expectation is for that. Just a weird, quirky little thing about the Build program this year for us. The legislators decided to define two aspects of the awards, I think in an effort to tie the administration's hands a little bit, because in the last several rounds, this current administration was awarding more of the grant dollars to rural properties than urban properties. And so in this current funding bill, It states that no more than 50% of the awards can go to rural and no more than 50% can go to urban. So they were trying to balance that out. Then the second piece of information related to that, which is really interesting, at least it's interesting to me, is that it defined rural as a community with a population less than 200,000. So we are now, for this grant program, considered rural, even though we are an urbanized area by every other federal definition, in particular the Census Bureau and all of our other federal funding programs. We're urban. But for the BUILD program, we're rural. So BUILD, we're rural. The bus and bus facilities will be urban. So it's a really interesting mix, and I don't know what that means in terms of our prospects for award. It could be good news, could be bad news. It's just a little quirky, so we'll see how that plays out. And with that, I will take questions up to and including page 51, if you have any.
So previously, the build program didn't make it, even though the urban programs were getting more money. Past years, the recent years. Is that right?
I'm not 100% sure I understood your question. Let me answer what I think you asked, and then if I'm off the mark, then we can try again. Both of the build program and the bus and bus facility programs received for this year that we'll be applying for, those pots of money have fewer dollars in them than they did in the previous year. But they both have more money in them than they did 2 years ago. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
In a roundabout way?
Go ahead.
So the BUILD program is a grant that we still have to compete for, and I guess, is it fair to say that if we get it, then our participation is pretty much guaranteed, or are we really dependent on this grant to be part of the yards project?
No. I mean, I can tell you from a staff perspective that our intention is to be committed to it regardless, because the need exists regardless. So the question becomes, how much money do we have available for the participation? We have other funding sources that we can tap into, but we will have fewer dollars available if that's the route that we have to go. If we are awarded build grants or bus and bus facility grants, then that allows us to fully participate and to, I think that will make the project as a whole better. But if we don't get those and we have to tap into these alternative sources of revenue, then there will be less money available for the project, and that means we'll have to potentially scale it back.
Any other questions for Carl up to page 51 of his report? Seeing none, we'll move on to our next item on our agenda, which is the committees of the whole, and those are the assignments of the committees. I emailed the board members individually and polled them on their requests asked them to make 2 choices for requests for committee placement. And for administration committee, Linda will be the chair and Dick will be the vice chair. For the facility committee, Jim will be the chair and Bruce will be the vice chair. And for the service delivery committee, Margaret will be the chair and Matt will be the vice chair. And then the rest of the members of the board are the additional members of the committee of the whole. Our next item, unless anyone has a question, no questions on that? That's per the board's request. Our next item is our first action item, and that is our board clerk duty policy. Let me touch on a couple items on that. This item is the policy and procedure number 14 for the duties of the board clerk. The Board of Trustees find that in order to ensure compliance with legal requirements regarding the operation of governmental bodies with respect to preparation and maintenance of minutes, board meetings, publication and postings of notice of meetings and public hearings, preparation and preservation of public records, overseeing and the proper destruction of public records. The responsibilities for such should be fixed and set forth. The duties of the board clerk are listed in the 7 items below. If the board would like to review those and ask any questions of Carl on this item, please do.
I move that we approve this policy with the slight amendment that the title says 14 instead of 25.
Oh, yeah, there was a correction on the document that you have in front of you. It says number 25. It's actually 14. It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 14. The board clerk duties. Will ask for a roll call. Whoop, go ahead, Linda.
Can I ask a question? Who's actually, so we don't say who the person is, and we don't necessarily say it's the executive assistant. So how do we define who is the board clerk?
So yes, the policy is irrespective of the individual, and it's just talking about the positions. The board secretary has been selected by you. You voted to appoint our legal counsel as the board secretary. And then this policy says that I appoint the board clerk, and in our current case, our board clerk is the district's executive assistant, Beth Brunk. And so that could change, or the individuals in those positions could change, but the board at any time could vote to appoint someone else as a secretary, or I could appoint someone else as the board clerk. But that's where we are currently.
Thanks.
It's all right. Additional questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and second. We'll ask for the roll call.
Barnes. Bauer. Chaplin. Cho. Hannon. Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Our next action item is the onboard data communication pilot program. Carl.
Okay, thank you for amending the agenda to include this. This was an item that came up very, very late last week right after we had posted the agenda and board packets. But getting this approved today will allow us to meet a schedule that retains the integrity of the grant funds that will pay for this, and will allow this to be completed before the end of this fiscal year, the end of June. So I appreciate that amendment. This is a pilot program that will reprogram our server-side software of our CAD-AVL system. Just a reminder, the CAD-AVL is computer-aided dispatch and automatic vehicle location. And so that's how we track the buses and communicate with the vehicles. I'm not talking about communicating with the driver, but this is how we actually communicate with the bus itself. And so it's data communication, not voice communication to the driver. So right now, we use a UHF two-way radio band channel to transmit the data packets, and that is very limiting in its bandwidth. And so this begins the conversion to using a cellular system for data only, not voice communications, data only, to communicate between the vehicle and the control center. And so that has essentially no bandwidth constraint, at least not one that we could possibly bump up against. And so that will allow us to communicate better and more quickly with the vehicles, and it allows us to transmit more data back and forth. And so it gives us the ability to more fully utilize the system and provide better information to our customers, where right now we're restricted by this bandwidth. There are some aspects of the system that we have, but we can't use because we can't transmit large enough data packets back and forth. So I'll leave it at that, and if you have any questions about what I attempted to just say, then let me know.
Dick, go ahead.
Do you have voice communication potential as well?
Via the cellular?
Via anything with the driver?
So we do have voice communication. Right now, it's a good question, I should have clarified. We are using two distinct UHF two-way radio band channels, one for voice communications and one for data communications. The data communications one is the one that the cellular will start taking over, and we'll roll that out through the fleet. But the voice communication will still continue on the two-way UHF radio, because there's no bandwidth constraint that is an issue there.
What types of data are you communicating? Is it anything to do with the engine or the placement or the number of riders? What kind of data?
Well, so I kind of want to answer yes to that list that you gave, though we're not doing all of that now. This gives us the ability to do that, even to the degree that there are health monitoring aspects to the system that we can't now, but we would be able to start using, so that the maintenance department can get real-time information on if an engine is overheating, or there's low oil, or there's a leak in an airbag, or something like that. Some mechanical issue on the bus can be communicated to the control center and maintenance immediately then. That's a real thing that exists, but we can't use it with the UHF system. So it's all of that that type of thing. We can push out reroutes to the buses, so that makes the information that people get on their cell phones accurate. If we have to put a reroute, we can update that on the fly. We can't do that now. We have to wait for a vehicle to come back to the garage, connect to our Wi-Fi, and download the new reroute information. So it can't happen until the end of the day, and it won't be it won't be active until the following day. Whereas with this, we can push it out. Jay can sit at his computer in his office, type it up, push it out to control, and it goes out to the buses all essentially in real time. I'm probably over-dramatizing it a little bit, but it might take a couple of minutes, but pretty quickly.
Okay. Bruce, do you have something? All right. So basically, stuff that you would have to go back to maintenance, if we were going to go back and they download something for maintenance, something that they can find that out what's going on, basically.
Correct.
Accurate? Okay.
And this, I assume, is going to affect our kiosk information in some way, or not?
Well, it does. It's all tied with that. So the information on a kiosk or on a mobile phone, I know you don't use a mobile phone, but lots of other people get that real-time information on the mobile phone or on the kiosk. That is all derived from the information that the vehicle, the bus, is sending to the control center. So the better information we're able to get, the better that information will be that we provide to the customer. So it absolutely will enhance the information, or make the information more accurate and timely that we're pushing out to the customers via the real-time information system.
Any other questions on this item? Matt?
I noticed that it's a pilot project on 2 of the 3 buses. Do you have an idea of, like, if this was to be deployed for all the buses, what that cost would increase to?
Yeah, so that's kind of the beauty of this system. So the majority of this cost, almost all of this cost, is for the software that will utilize the cellular system. We have already been equipping the vehicles when we replace vehicles. I believe beginning in 2011, is that correct? What? 16? Okay, I've been corrected. In 2016, every bus that we've purchased since 2016 has the hardware piece in the vehicle to do this. So that is, I'm not even going to guess. Eric, how many vehicles is that? 16, 17, and 18? 36. Okay. 36 or so vehicles already have this equipment.
Jacob says 37.
It does, you're right.
37, it's right in there.
Yeah. Okay, I should read my own memos. Ryan wrote this memo. So we have 37 vehicles that are equipped already with this equipment. Once this pilot program with these 3 vehicles, once we test that and we feel like it is successful, we can basically flip a switch or push a button, whatever it is, and turn on these other 37 vehicles, and then all of them are using the cellular. And as every new vehicle that we purchase comes in, that number increases, and we will slowly get rid of the UHF two-way radio data communication system.
So just along those lines, so on some of the buses, like the 60-footers that we're probably not going to be turning over super soon, would that be something that we might do sooner than later, I guess, until they're replaced? I mean, obviously, the hybrid buses are going to be 60-footers, so that potentially replaces 2 of the, but for the other ones, are they going to be in service for a while where maybe it might be feasible to add this technology to them now? I'm just
Eric
wondering.
is listening very closely to how I answer this question.
Okay.
The Arctic buses are 2001 vehicles, so they are well past their federally defined useful life.
Sure.
Now, they have fewer miles because we only run them 9 months out of the year. We only operate them when the U of I is in session. So they're in pretty good shape for being 18 years old.
That's why I asked the question. I was thinking.
But they are long in the tooth, even though they're in pretty good shape. I mean, there are some aspects to them that are so old, Eric can't get replacement parts for. I mean, he's having to crawl around in the dark web to try to find parts for some of these vehicles.
So you're going to say no?
So, well, the answer is we're going to try to replace those vehicles as quickly as we can. They're actually in our loose plan for the next 3 or 4 years, they're scheduled to be replaced. The 2 hydrogen Arctic buses will be the first 2 replacements of those 12 2001 Arctics.
Gotcha. Okay. Additional questions on this item? If not, I'll ask for a motion. It's been moved to approve the onboard data communication pilot program. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That was our last item for today's meeting. Our next meeting our next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be Wednesday, March 27th, 2019, at 3 p.m. right here in the Champaign City Council chambers. Anything additional from the board? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved to adjourn. Thank you for your attendance. Have a great day.